Hello, welcome back to A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm Reverend Tomas Garza. And well, we're in the midst of the Manual for Teachers. Yeah, good stuff. A spiritual FAQ with Jesus. It's pretty cool. That's what I like to call it. That's actually the form that this manual takes, is a series of frequent questions. It's like an FAQ section on someone's website. It really is. And what we're doing is we're going through question 4. What are the characteristics of God's teachers? And in particular, Jesus specifically mentions 10. We've covered the first 8, and today we're on number 9, which is faithfulness. So, as you might imagine, A Course in Miracles has a different definition for faithfulness than one that exists in common parlance. So let's just cut right to the chase and spell it out. Faith and faithfulness are words that are used in wildly different ways here in the world. And because they're used in wildly different ways, you can rest assured that there is a lot of misunderstanding out there. Any definition, any word, which is a symbol of the thing it stands for, which is also a symbol of what's going on in your own mind. So as Jesus explicitly and correctly tells us, they're actually twice removed from reality. If that's the case, no wonder we have such divergent views of faith and faithfulness, huh? I mean, it stands to reason, doesn't it? We can use any definition to include or exclude as we choose. And the choice is dependent on which thought system we follow. It's dependent on who we believe we are, and therefore what we share with other people. Do we share our fear-based thoughts of exclusion and separation? In the guise of faith and faithlessness, do we define and defend people as believers and non-believers? Let's use that one. I'm in the United States. I get to do that, right? It doesn't just apply here. All of this is universal, isn't it? Because we all make divisions. So are you using a word like faith or faithfulness to exclude, or are you using it to include? That is a very important question for us. Now, if we follow the thought system of God, of the Holy Spirit, of this course, right? Non-duality. In other words, if we follow the thought system of love instead of fear, then we will inevitably take all of our definitions and use them to include, to bring everything and everyone into the path, recognizing that there is no difference, that there is no separation of any kind. Therefore, distinctions such as believer and non-believer, distinctions such as right and wrong, left and right, up and down, distinctions of any kind simply vanish in the presence of truth. It depends on the thought system that we choose. So, as you know, I'm always mentioning on these videos that we have a choice in the present moment between love and fear, God or the ego, thought system of the Holy Spirit versus the thought system of separation and suffering. That's our choice. So, as you might imagine, the Manual for Teachers here in A Course in Miracles takes an all-inclusive definition of faithfulness. This is the measure of progress for one of God's teachers, by the way, is his or her degree of faithfulness. Here's how it's defined. It's bringing everything to one's learning. If you're a student of Buddhism or are familiar with it, it's bringing everything to the path, everything, all things, all experience, everything without exception. So that, and nothing less than that, deserves the title of faithfulness, does it? That's what faithfulness is in A Course in Miracles. Now, let's get real and practical here. What I just talked about is what faithfulness is bringing everything to the path. Here in the language of the Course, it's bringing everything to our inner teacher. All of our experience, giving it over to our inner teacher. Everything without exception. That's what we're instructed to do. So here in the world, we don't automatically do that. And if you don't automatically do this, well, don't worry about that. Join the club. Because we've been conditioned to think of ourselves as individuals. And in some societies in the world, we're bound and determined to see ourselves as rugged individuals. We spout phrases such as, me against the world. Oh, yeah. How about that? How's that working out for you? Us against the world. Really? Is that what you want? Because if that's what you say and think, boom, that's what you get. Yeah. This course is proposing a 180-degree alternative. The more you choose this thought system, the more you experience the tremendous benefits of peace of mind in any situation. Now, Jesus is very explicit about this in the commentary, that we don't start off this way. So I want you to please give yourself some grace for not being as enlightened as Jesus and Buddha. It's not going to happen for the vast majority of us, almost all of us, in 5 minutes of contemplation, is it? Because we've got to unlearn and unravel so much. There are ways that we can do this more quickly. One of them is to bring everything to the path. Bring every experience to your learning. So what we want to do at first is we think, okay, well, I can forgive certain things and not others. Yeah, I can forgive myself maybe for spilling coffee on my wet pants this morning on my way out the door. Made me late to work, but whatever. I can forgive myself for that. But I can't forgive someone on the opposite end of the political spectrum. I can't forgive my ex who said mean things to me. All right, so start where you are. That is a famous phrase in spirituality, isn't it? In fact, it's the title of a really excellent book by the Buddhist nun Pema Chodron. Yeah, start where you are. It means start with what you're capable of right here, right now on the path. Any act of forgiveness is highly beneficial. Any single one. Including forgiving a passing cloud for not bringing enough rain. It's just an example. Everything, bring everything to the path. Ultimately, our forgiveness takes on a completely different dimension, and we go beyond simply forgiving the dog for peeing on the living room floor to forgiving things in general, rather than specifically, generally. And once we begin to really experience this generality in our forgiveness practice, we really, really see and experience things differently. I mean, forgive not just one member of the opposite political party, but all of them. Forgive the political system in general. Forgive entire nation states. Forgive the world. Forgive all phenomena. Forgive the ego. And while you're at it, forgive yourself for dreaming all of it. Everything that appears to happen out there is, in fact, a reflection of what's going on in here. That idea, as most of these ideas here in A Course in Miracles, that idea takes time. Mostly they do. Happily, that is what time is for. Jesus is very clear about this at various points here in the Course. Is the purpose of time is so we can do this work and wake up. So please do not worry if it appears to be taking you some time. No one is saying that if your ex was hyper abusive, that you really have to forgive that person right now, today. Start with something else. But this is the definition of faithfulness here in the Course. It's all-inclusive. It excludes no one. It excludes no thing. It's total. It's bringing everything to the path. So people frequently ask me, and this is a very good question in practice, is how do I know that I'm making progress? Isn't that a good question? I mean, if you're wondering that, keep wondering that, right? Here's a quick response to that is, where were you when you started this practice? Where are you now? I mean, if you just started it 15 minutes ago, you could still use that as an example, but for many of us, it's been a while since we took up this course, or we took up whatever it is your spiritual tradition is. Maybe you've been practicing your own spiritual tradition, whatever that is, whether it's a traditional world religion like Christianity, or whether it is a more modern spirituality, right, that has come about and proliferated in recent years. I don't know, whatever it is. Think about where you were when you started going deep with that and really practicing and diving into it. Where were you? What were you like? Where are you now? Are you more loving? Are you more patient? Are you more kind? Are you more forgiving? Do you laugh more? I mean, really, do you? Do you still take things as seriously as you did back then? Or have you given yourself a little bit of relief? I don't know. That's a really interesting conversation to have with yourself from time to time. I invite you to do it. I invite you to do it because really what is going on here for people that teach spirituality is we learn as much as we teach. No one ever learns as much as the teacher. So I am learning this course right here with you. I'm sharing my experience and I'm sharing the teachings themselves. I'm sharing them as I'm directed to share them. And there's no difference between us. The only apparent difference is that I have simply answered the call. And perhaps you have answered it as well. And you did so long ago. And our form, our external form of how we show up differs, doesn't it? Not everybody has to hold themselves out as a spiritual teacher, as I do. That's what I'm directed to do. What you're directed to do can be something entirely different in terms of form, isn't it? But the content of it, extending love, is the same. It's the same no matter what your spiritual tradition is, which is something that I love to say, and it's worth pointing out all the time, is that A Course in Miracles is universal. It applies no matter what your tradition is. You can choose to adopt this as your sole spiritual practice or not, as you are called, as you see fit. My job is simply to get you to listen to your inner teacher and get in touch with your inner teacher. This, by the way, is that voice deep within you that keeps telling you to work on your spirituality, to watch this video, to read this book, whatever it is. It's that voice that speaks to you maybe all the time, maybe only some of the time. It's that voice that, well, it's actually constantly speaking to you. It's, whether we're aware of it or not, but it is this voice within you. It's part of you that says there's got to be a different way. Try this. There's got to be a different way. This way that you've selected is not working. It doesn't matter how much money you've got, how many sexy lovers you have. Doesn't matter what your car looks like, what you drive, where you live. Doesn't matter what your social status is. Are you constantly happy all of the time? Do you have the peace of God? It's that voice. Now, sometimes it appears to shout at us. Sometimes it's very quiet. It's an urging. And sometimes, of course, it doesn't even take the form of a voice at all. We simply remember something and we wonder why we've got this feeling about it. I think that most of us can relate to some instances like that. So what I invite you to do is to get in touch with that voice. It's part of you that's speaking to you of the truth. It's speaking to you of who you really are. That's what I invite you to get in touch with. And thank you, as always, for tuning in here. In the next video, we'll take a look at the 10th and final characteristic of the teachers of God, and then we'll be moving on in the manual. All right, guys, thank you, as always, for your practice and for joining me.